Chapter 1. The Breach of Wall Maria. Ruby skipped along the upper wall with a smile strewn across her face. She had recently been put into the scout regiment and was excited to be working with her sister and her friends. She stopped above the gate and took a deep breath, overlooking the inner wall. She smiled and sighed a bit. Yang walked over casually with a smile and put an arm around Ruby. "Doesn't get better than this," Yang smiled, looking over the city as well. "Sis, it's amazing up here. No yelling, fighting, obnoxious kids." Ruby smiled and looked up at Yang. "Need I remind you that you used to be an obnoxious kid?" Yang snickered a bit, putting a hand on Ruby's head, scruffing up her hair a bit. "Hey, I'm not as annoying as Cardin, at least." Ruby fake pouted and rolled her eyes. "Yeah, but he is a good squad leader. Speaking of which, Weiss said we should go scouting later. To show you around outside the walls a bit. Feed your curiosity." Yang smiled. She knew that Ruby had always wanted to go outside the walls and explore. "Really? You mean we can go outside?" Ruby smiled widely and happily. "Sure do," Yang giggled. "Yes!" Ruby squealed and jumped in the air. "You're the greatest, Yang." She hugged her tightly. Don't mention it, Rube." Yang smiled, hugging her back. She looked outside the wall at the large open field. A thought crossed her mind, and her eyes widened. What if Ruby isn't strong enough? What if she messes up? What if she dies? She thought to herself. She started to sweat nervously, worried about her younger sister. "Well, I'm gonna go finish up those cannons and inspections I was sent to do." "See you, sis." Ruby smiled and skipped off along the wall. Pyrrha was sitting on the edge of the wall overlooking the city, swaying her feet back and forth, her red hair flowing in the wind ever so slightly. It was elegant and breathtaking. Yang decided to go and sit by her. She plopped down next to her and sighed. "What's wrong, Yang?" Pyrrha asked, turning to face her. "I'm just worried." Yang sighed, shaking her hair out a bit. "About Ruby, I'm guessing?" Pyrrha asked. Yang nodded slowly. "Don't worry, Yang. Ruby may not be the smartest, but she definitely can hold her own in a fight." Yang giggled a bit. "Yeah, I guess you're right. Just being a big sister, that's all." "She'll be all right, Yang. I'm sure of it." Pyrrha smiled. The sky suddenly got darker, and Yang looked around confused. "Where did all the clouds come from?" Yang asked, standing up. "Wasn't this cloudy before?" Pyrrha frowned, looking up at the sky. "Why are those clouds swirling?" She asked, a bit nervous. "Swirling clouds? Something is definitely off." Yang drew her blades and cocked the trigger in case she needed to fire her grappling hooks. Weiss used her grappling hook to fling herself up to where Yang was. "Yang, is it just me, or do you see that too? And also, where the hell is Ruby and Blake?" Weiss asked, putting a hand on her hip, looking at Yang. "Yes, Weiss, I see the sky. And Ruby is on inspections, and I have no clue what the hell Blake is doing." Yang sighed. Almost right after Yang finished her sentence, there was a large and loud flash of lightning in front of the wall. It smashed the ground, and a massive cloud of smoke erupted over a large portion of the outer wall. Yang froze with her mouth wide open, her eyes open as far as they could go. Weiss had an eyebrow raised, and Pyrrha was frozen in shock like Yang. "What the hell?" Yang shouted as loud as she could. Ruby wasn't too far away from them, about 200 feet on the wall to their right. Ruby's face was pale when she looked at the cloud of smoke. She saw something different because of her angle. "Get off the wall!" she shouted, jumping and grappling to a building down below. Weiss and Pyrrha grappled down without question. They could see from the expression on Ruby's face that whatever she saw was purely terrifying. Also, they would rather not question it. Yang, however, stood still, frozen. She was unable to move. A large, red hand slowly emerged out of the smoke and clamped onto the wall. Its palm was so large that it could easily clamp all the way around the top. Is that a titan? Weiss looked wide-eyed as well. That's impossible. That means its hand must be over 7 meters long. May and Shauna, friends of Pyrrha and Yang, grappled to the building the three were standing on. What's shaking, Bacon? Shauna smiled when she landed. Not now, Shauna. Look at the wall. Pyrrha said in a shaky voice. Why would I? Shauna was saying, but then froze at the sight. Is that a hand? Wait, where's Sienna? May looked around frantically. Oh no, I lost her. Oh man. She's probably freaking out alone. May turned and grappled onto a nearby building and hauled herself back in the direction she came. Heh, those two lovebirds. Shauna smirked. She then looked up at the wall that had the hand clamped on it. So what do we do about that? I have no idea. What's that noise? Ruby asked, raising an eyebrow. About 5 seconds after she said that, the gate of the wall smashed open. Rubble, boulders, and metal flew in different directions. A few boulders crushed people, and some of the metal decapitating or impaling some. Yang was thrown off the wall by the force of the blow. She grappled to the side of the wall, facing the city, looking around at the destruction with wide eyes. There was a mother and daughter screaming because the father was crushed underneath rubble. A young boy looking around crying for his parents. A woman lay coughing and bleeding on the ground with a large beam of metal through her stomach, along with many more people dead, grieving, or running. It was absolutely horrifying. Nothing like this had ever happened inside the walls. Ruby wiped her eyes clear of whatever dust was in there so she could see. She looked at the wall and gasped. There's a hole in it, she said in pure terror and fear. May had found Sienna, who was crying, rocking back and forth in an alleyway. May knelt by her and put a hand on her shoulder. Sienna. Sweetie, we have to go. Dying. Everyone is dying, she cried out, covering her eyes. Jean and Sun grappled next to the two. Titans are flooding the city. We have to get behind Walrose now, before we can't. Sun spoke in a commanding tone. What? How? Titans? She asked, turning to them. The Titan outside the wall smashed through the gate. Why do you think there's debris everywhere? Jean sighed, looking down the street. Sienna hugged May's arm tightly. God help us. Chapter 2. Escape or failure? RWBY grappled onto a wall and zoomed past the Titan. She breached its neck with her blade, downing at ease. Weiss fought with RWBY against the Titans like a well-oiled machine, whilst Pyrrha stuck one of her grappling hooks into a Titan's cheek and one into its shoulder. She pulled towards the Titan, but another grabbed her. Yang jumped off a building and spun, slashing the Titan's hand, releasing off Pyrrha. Pyrrha landed and grappled up to the Titan, slashing its neck, taking it down. Don't die yet, Pyrrha. Yang smirked at her, then turned and grappled to the wall. Pyrrha nodded and turned to the wall, more Titans flooding in. There's too many of them. We have to retreat, Pyrrha shouted. RWBY cut down a Titan and stood on the building looking at the wall. Whoa! Way too many. RWBY backed up a bit. Let's get moving. We can't take this many. Pyrrha gulped, backing up. She turned and grappled to another building, heading away from the wall as fast as possible. Quickly, Weiss followed, grappling to another Titan, heading towards the inner area, slicing its neck. Before it fell down, she jumped off, grappling to a building, running on a roof, following Pyrrha. May, Sienna, Jean, and Sun had already made it to the secondary wall, heading to the inner side of Walrose. A massive wall, but smaller than Maria. The walls consisted of the outer wall Maria, and a smaller wall quite a ways behind it. Then behind the smaller wall was Walrose, and in the center of the massive circular wall structure was Walsina. Pyrrha had made it to the secondary wall, in front of Walrose. She turned and waited for the rest to arrive. RWBY first. Then Weiss and Yang arrived at the same time. They panted inside in relief. "We made it." RWBY corrected back. "Let's get inside before any more Titans show up." "Right," the three said in unison, heading through the gate and running towards Walrose. Nora and Ren arrived at the secondary wall 5 minutes after RWBY and the rest did. They were panting heavily, but Nora did not stop. She continued and ran through the gate. Ren, however, did not come. He instead went to a collapsed house to save a child who was screaming for help. But down the road from the gate, there was a Titan. An unusual Titan. It was plated with an armor so thick that cannonballs couldn't even pierce it. And it was just standing there. The guards started to close the massive gate, and Nora screamed, "Ren, get out of there!" Ren was lifting up a beam to get a child out from under. The little girl stood and made a run for the gate. She managed to get inside and hugged Nora's legs. Nora jumped a bit confused, but didn't care. She screamed again, "Ren!" Ren turned his head and dropped the beam. The beam landed, crushing his foot and trapping him. The Titan was on a set course for Ren, running as fast as it could. Ren turned and saw the Titan, then looked at Nora. He smiled and mouthed the words, "I love you." And with that, the Titan grabbed Ren and bit him, crushing his spine, ripping him in half. Nora screeched, tears rolling down her cheeks as the gates closed. She ran up to the gate, pounding on it, screaming. She eventually stopped and fell to her knees, crying her eyes out. The little girl walked over slowly and sat next to Nora. She sniffled and started to cry as well. "I lost someone too. I lost my mommy." She coughed and tears rolled. Nora turned to the girl and hugged her tightly. "Don't worry, honey," she sniffed, trying to comfort the child. "I'll watch over you." The little girl closed her eyes. "Okay, Mommy."